give us a subscribe.
It's time to count down the worst wrestling pay-per-views of 2023. I am Luco and DAD. I'm joined by Tempest and I'm joined by Pete as we are going to go through the results of our end-of-year awards for the worst wrestling pay-per-view of the year. Now, the way that this works is that we have got a system that goes out and people vote for this. It's not just us here at WrestleTalk and partsFUNknown and No Rolls Barred. It also includes WrestleTalk.com writers, our $100 Patreon backers, our moderating team, and, of course, members of the wider WrestleTalk and partsFUNknown universe. So lots of, influencers, you might say, have contributed to these. They vote for them. Their top pick gets 5 points. Their second pick gets 4, and so on and so forth. And I would argue this has been the topic of discussion the most in the office about what we're going to put on this list, because it was much harder this year because there haven't really been any bad shows.
Thanks, WWE. They got good all of a sudden.
Yeah. Right? This made our job so much harder to do these awards. We're only 3 years into giving out worst pay-per-view, but already the system's falling apart. I might as well call this the most mid-show of the year.
Yeah. The thing is, we were talking about, halfway through the year, we were like, I don't think WWE does B shows anymore because they're just all really good now, and that's made it much harder for us.
And then Payback showed up.
Yeah, and Fastlane. But then it's much harder to pick, especially when 2 night shows count as one show. So you can't just isolate one of the nights to be like, WrestleMania Night 2 wasn't very good, or whatever, because WrestleMania Night 1 was incredible. So combined, it's fine. So it's really hard to put that on the list. So this is a really hard list this year.
A lot of this one really is down to personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
That is across all of the feedback forms that we've had. It's just I prefer this match to this.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, I think, is more vibes than it is anything else. It was I did not enjoy that show as much as I did 10 other shows on this system. And I guess, when I look back on it, I don't remember anything from it. I just remember the vibe at the time. So that's going on my list. That explains some of them. Because for me, one of the entries on this is wild that it is on this list.
Oh, dear.
Wait.
Okay.
I can't wait.
Oh, dear.
But looking into the ones that didn't make it into our top 5, we're only going to do our top 5 on this one like we do for all of our pay-per-view shows. Here's the ones that did not make it into the top 5.
Yeah.
Scoring 12 points across 5 nominations, one of which was top level, the Royal Rumble.
What?
Who? Yeah, someone voted for that for their worst show of the year.
That's... Huh?
Yeah, I know.
What do you want to see? 2 good Rumble matches and the closing angle. You're not getting better than that.
God.
In at number 9, with 13 points, 3 nominations, 2 of which were top level, NWA Sam Hain.
Sure.
Or Sarwen, whatever.
With the cocaine spot?
With the cocaine angle,
yeah,
absolutely.
Nice. Yeah.
In at number 8, 17 points, 5 nominations, 2 of which were top level, WWE Night of Champions.
Sure. Okay, yeah.
It was a fine little show.
I don't even get that one, honestly,
But
because
it's
that's a
main
good
event.
show.
Good
Yeah.
main event.
Yeah.
You got AJ and Seth in the opener. That was good.
Yeah.
The Brock Cody match on that show was pretty good.
The main event's great.
Main event's great.
I think maybe people might just be a bit bored of the Roman stuff. I've seen that as kind of a common thing through this year. People being the Roman stuff, I could take it or leave, especially after Mania, when people are like, ugh, Cody should have won. I'm a bit bored of this whole Roman stuff. So maybe that's a factor on it. I don't know.
I think it being a Saudi show,
that too.
I think is often I think that gets into a lot of people's nominations
For sure.
just because it's a Saudi show. And
Yeah.
that kind of gets into it. It's a joint 6th position, both of which scoring 25 points. One of which got 6 nominations with 2 top level. The other got 11 nominations, one of which was top level. The one that got 2, so the one that got 1 top level was Double or Nothing. AEW's Double or Nothing.
Really? I thought this was going to be on the main list.
Yeah, it did not. It was there for a while, but it's been bumped down. And NWA 75 got the
Listen, if this
2
was
top
a
level.
just world, the whole list would be NWA shows.
There was someone who did just nominate all NWA shows.
Nice, yeah.
And all Tyrus matches.
Yeah.
No one's watching this.
Yeah.
Sorry, Billy Corgan.
Yeah.
But I do like Melancholy and Infinite Sadness, so thanks for that. Which makes us to our actual top 5. With 27 points, 9 nominations, one of which was top level, AEW All Out.
Y'all are dumb. I'm sorry, there are 2 5-star matches on here that are match of the year contenders and an awesome main event.
Every time it kept coming up, I was like, how is this show getting so many nominations?
I genuinely believe that might just be because of the build, because it's all in, all out the week
That
after.
is my only explanation to it.
Bless you.
Is like that's what I was talking about.
say about this.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about vibes.
Yeah.
That's what people remember about the show. No one remembers Kenny and Takeshita.
Mm-hmm.
What they remember is, it came the week after All In, and there wasn't a lot of build to it. Like
Yeah.
that was like, that was the AEW podcast topic of that point, was like all out of ideas.
Yeah.
And then the show happened, and the show was awesome. The show
Mm-hmm.
is like Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks, the Miro and Powerhouse Hobbs match, the meat match. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of really good stuff on the show. That's not what people remember. People remember the 1 week's build.
Mm-hmm.
I got told that I was too harsh to this show by simply calling it really good. Where are you all now? Come to my defense.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wild.
that scored 27 points. In at
Double or Nothing's worse than that.
Absolutely.
I agree.
That's weird. Okay, sure.
I think that's a little bit of not recency bias because it was halfway through the year,
Yeah.
but like maybe everyone forgot Double or Nothing, which had Jericho and Cole, and it had the four pillar four way, which was while very very good, not
Built very poorly.
built very poorly and did not feel like the caliber of a world title match, particularly because it was coming off the back of Revolution.
Yeah, the weird Jade Cargill ending of the streak.
Right.
Yeah, the
Chris.
Jamie Hayter,
Tony Storm
Tony Storm
stuff.
thing,
Yep.
which
Yeah.
I've watched back and is much worse than I remembered.
Yeah, for me, Double or Nothing was way worse. Double or Nothing was one of my votes.
Yeah.
It was one of mine.
One of mine
Yeah.
as well.
In at number 4, 32 points, 10 nominations, one of which was top level, WWE Fastlane.
Sure.
This, I'll be honest, I cannot remember which one is which with Fastlane and Payback.
Fastlane's the one with John Cena on it.
Okay.
Doesn't narrow it down.
It's Cena and LA Knight versus... That's the one with Cena and LA Knight versus the Bloodline.
Right.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it is. He was on the poster for it at the very least. Hold on.
We're on the fast lane to
I'll-
Survivor Series. I don't know.
I remember you being really annoyed that Fastlane was at this point of the year.
We're just naming things now. Like, you know what I mean? And I get it. You need to cover some time in this middle chunk of the year.
Sure.
And Roman was going to work one more match before the end of the year. And so the rest of this chunk, this fall chunk, was going to be, let's spend 2 months heating up LA Knight, and let's do Seth Rollins versus a mid-carder for the world title. Now, I think they got some pretty good results with Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura.
It's a good main event.
All things considered, I think that did better than people expected.
Better than the first match there.
Shinsuke Nakamura has not been a main event guy in WWE for a very, very long time. So there's a lot of not as interested fans in these shows compared to pretty much all other WWE shows of the year.
I would agree. It is the one with the Cena tag match. Cena and
Yeah.
LA Knight versus the Bloodline.
And this is the one where people go like, oh, they are still doing B shows. That and Payback.
Yeah.
They got to them and went, no, they are still here.
Yeah.
And this was a B show, and it was fine for what a B show is, but it was a B show. It was missable
Because
mostly.
it was in the States.
Again,
Yeah.
if I can reference Survival Series Thunderdome Edition, this is where all of our contestants came unstuck.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I just don't remember these shows because they didn't feel very important.
Yeah.
You see, Luke, I must reiterate, WWE's non-Big Four shows are only good if they're not in America.
Agreed.
Continental America.
Yeah.
You go to Puerto Rico, you go to Montreal, you go to England, yields good results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Saudi.
Yeah, even
Night
Saudi,
of Champions was great.
Yeah. And I think we'll see the same again in 2024 when they're in France and when they're in Germany.
Yep.
I think that'll
And
be really great.
Australia.
And
And
Australia.
Australia for Chamber.
In at number 3 with 35 points, 10 nominations, 3 of which were top level, WWE SummerSlam.
Yeah.
This is, I would say, of these 5, the one I agree with the most. Because I think there's a lot to be said for streak killers. And WWE was on a streak every single show. Man, that show is awesome. Man, that show is awesome. Man, that show is awesome. SummerSlam was the first one you're like, ah. And I think that the company has struggled since SummerSlam. The post-SummerSlam lull is real. And this was a bad SummerSlam in terms of doing that. Of just like, nothing really came out of the show being like, oh man, I can't wait to see what the next pay-per-view is.
Yeah, like you had some good matches on the show.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Ricochet and Logan Paul, good match.
Good match.
Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes, really good match.
Best of the trilogy.
You had something else, but
Some other stuff.
there was some other stuff on it.
Yeah.
But I think the Sheamus-Drew McIntyre match under-delivered compared to the standard that people thought it was going to reach, that being, they thought it was going to be, and I thought it as well, I thought it was going to be at the level of the Gunther Sheamus / Gunther Sheamus McIntyre match at WrestleMania.
Agreed.
And with a 5-star match, this probably wouldn't be one of the worst shows of the year. But this was like, yeah, it was a good match,
That's
but
it.
it was fine. And then it had Ronda and Shayna,
Uh-huh.
which is
Bad.
a pitiful excuse of a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Doesn't know what it is. And you've got the main event.
And the main event it's the worst Roman match of the year. I think this is worse than the LA Knight match.
Is this
Yeah.
the worst WWE main event match in a long time? Like,
Cody Roman.
okay.
Good match though. Up until
Yeah,
it's the
it is.
I
exploding
didn't
barbed
hate
wire death
watching
match
it.
of WrestleMania main events.
Yeah.
I didn't hate watching Cody Roman
Yeah, that's
until the
fair.
last 5 seconds of it.
That's fair.
I didn't enjoy watching most of this match. And I don't think a lot of people did. It's 36 minutes.
It's 36 minutes. It's long.
If it was half as long, if it was 18 minutes, maybe it's better.
Yeah.
Because you don't have people sitting there on their hands for a half hour watching a match they know who's going to win, and then still somehow being shocked at how stupid the finish was.
Yeah, with the Jimmy turn and everything.
Yeah.
Like, I get that the Jimmy thing in the months that have come since has been like, okay, he's kind of funny, and he's like, whatever. It's still dumb.
it's still real
It's
stupid.
still not what people wanted to see.
Yeah. There's also the triple threat on it as well with Bianca Belair, Asuka, and Flair. That match was real good.
Yeah.
And the Sky cash-in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sky's Cash-In was great.
Sky's cash-in was great.
Yeah.
The show had a lot of potential,
Yeah.
but I think the thing that people remember the most about it are it being the worst main event they've done all year, and probably a lot longer ago than that.
I think it's the Street Killer.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that for me is what SummerSlam is.
And also, it's supposed to be the second biggest show of the year. And people came away from being like, that might have been the worst one. And it's like, you've had like 6 shows before this that were all great.
Yeah.
And it's worse by comparison.
In at number 2, you can see how close all of these are. There's only like 5 points, or maybe like just under 10 points separating 4 and 1.
Yeah.
But with 37 points, 11 nominations, 4 of which were top level, WWE Payback.
Sure, again.
I voted for this higher than Fastlane because the main event was way worse. Shinsuke Nakamura and Seth Rollins had no business being the main event of that show.
Yeah, I remember
considering
that.
that the Usos versus Judgment Day was a really, really good match and should have been the main event. Rollins and Nakamura had no business being the main event, and they had a boring match that went real long. Raquel's match was real boring and real long. I didn't like this show much, but that tag match was awesome.
I'm surprised that this show and Fastlane didn't get like tied exact number of
Uh-huh.
points, because they're the same show in my mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just this like fall lull where we're not building for a Saudi show yet, and we're not building to Survivor Series yet. So what are we doing? We're just killing time.
Holding pattern.
We're just killing time.
Yeah.
Cody's gonna have a little tag run.
The contractual obligations as opposed to being wrestling shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did give us the press conference, though, so can't knock it.
Oh,
Do you feel him?
do
sir?
you feel him, sir? Right, which brings us to our number 1 worst pay-per-view of 2023. 43 points, 12 nominations, 4 of which were top level. WWE Crown Jewel.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think, again, this is a good problem for them to have, and a good problem for us to have. There isn't a clear, oh my God, remember that show? Stinker this year, like there have been pretty much all other years.
Yeah.
We came out of that show being like, yeah, it was all right. It was good. We had a watch party, so we were like, still had a good time, and even matches that maybe weren't the most amazing things that we'd ever seen. We're just like, yeah, Logan Paul and Rey Mysterio. That was
Like that.
good match.
Watching Logan Paul save Rey Mysterio's
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Pretty good for me.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, this was the only Roman match this year where it was just like, oh, nothing happened.
Yeah.
You just beat the guy.
I've-
Same finish.
Yeah.
Uso interference.
It felt
he
like
won.
felt like a Roman match from 2021.
Yeah.
Like when he was just in that, like, I'm just beating dudes. And
Yeah.
there's no real story, no real rhyme or reason. I'm just racking up wins. And that's what this match was. I remember like going into it, I was like, this is the first and really the only Roman title defense we've had this year that's not had any bloodline like drama going into it. And you felt that in that main event.
Yeah.
Because LA Knight, over though he may be, did not feel like he belonged there. And the match was just so fine. It was okay. It was nowhere near as good as Roman matches have been this year.
Yeah.
It was a totally mid show.
It's a mid-show.
Mid-show.
And that's the worst show of the year.
And it's not a terrible show.
No.
Because, do you know what? Seth and Drew was awesome. And that was a really, really good match. The Kairi Sane return was really great as well.
Yeah.
And, like, all the damage control, like, drama that you had there, that was awesome. But, like, everything else, like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, if fine is the worst that we had to see in 2023, I'll take it.
That's it.
Pretty good year.
Cody and Damian Priest just had a fine little match.
Yeah.
They just had a fine little match. And I'm like, all right, you know what? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a good problem to have. It's just like the end of the year. I'm like, the worst pay-per-view of the year was fine.
Yep.
I'll take
Good
that
stuff,
for
wrestling.
I'll take that for 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it again next year.
Yeah. I mean, it might get to the point where we're like, maybe we retire this award.
Yeah.
Because if wrestling just keeps being good, then maybe this is a redundant list.
Oh, we'll see, won't we?
Because when we were talking about this, some people did say, it was like, you could just not do the award. Because we were talking about, like, I don't think there's going to be a really bad show this year. And I was like, well, you could not do it.
Yeah. But something does need to be the worst. Every time. There will be a worst.
This is YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something has to be the worst of
Absolutely.
something else.
Yeah.
So we'll find out. We'll see you next year for that. But we've got more great list content going down. There's countdown our favorite wrestlers, our best matches, best pay-per-views, and worst matches as well. So make sure you tune into all of those videos. Please do subscribe as well. I've been Luco and DAD. That has been Tempest. That has been Pete. Jam that jam. In at number 10, scoring 11 points, 3 nominations, one of which was top level. Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns from WrestleMania 39.
Yeah. I'm glad this is low down on the list because the match itself is phenomenal.
Very, very good.
And as I mentioned several times now, it was on course to be my favorite match of all time until the finish happened.
Cut to.
Yeah.